Welcome back to the Hortman Show. We're doing a little field trip outside to look at a lot of things. If you're watching me now, you survived the rainy spring that we had. It was god awful. However, we did start dry, and even before that there were a couple things that happened that set up some problems that we're now seeing in the landscape. And I'd love to start with these crepe myrtles. I have gotten lots of calls, and we're outside Carroll Media Center's building, and they have a nice little garden, and in it they have two crepe myrtles that are kind of framing a walkway that goes into a little area where you can sit. And I'm looking at this one crepe myrtle here to my right that looks like it's suffering from winter damage. We've seen quite a bit of this over the last 2 to 3 years because we've had pretty cold winters, or at least cold snaps during the winter. And what has been happening is, with crepe myrtles in our area, many of them lose either large branches or they die completely back to the ground. It's next to impossible, I think, to kill a crepe myrtle because you always have root sprouts that seem to recover. The problem, I think, with this winter especially was that the prior 2 winters killed these crepe myrtles back a fair amount, and there was a lot of new growth that came on that probably wasn't quite as hardened off or as protected as some of the older growth had been. And we're seeing here some dieback, and this kind of makes sense. This crepe myrtle is the furthest out from the building, and the building probably provided more winter protection for this other crepe myrtle that doesn't have as much dieback. And you can see there are these branches with nothing on them. At this point in the year, you should see green. You don't see it. So one of the best things to do is to prune this green out. Unfortunately, I probably should have brought a handsaw, because I would argue that even though you have these small green sprouts coming off the stem, maybe to eliminate this branch completely at this point. It's a pretty big cut, but crepe myrtles are relatively vigorous, and they'll start to kind of heal over or produce this callus or wound tissue. You can see some old pruning cuts right here. They left a bit too much of a stub, but already this callus tissue is starting to heal over. But you'll probably go through your crepe myrtles at this point, reaching up with a good pair of pruners and just cutting off the dead stuff, which is easy to identify. Cut back, if you can, to this collar area, and here's another branch stub. It looks probably was cut off last year. This eventually will seal over completely as the years go on. Hopefully these things won't be challenged too much by other winters, but it doesn't seem like it's in the cards. So I'll do one more right here, but we could probably peck away at this for a couple hours and not be fully happy. For me, again, I would make that one cut right here and just eliminate this whole branch. As you look further down, this one obviously had a big wound, and there's a relatively large unsealed or unprotected portion of the main stem. This in time could rot, producing a fair amount of weakness, and this whole thing could snap off, especially if we get a lot of wind like this. Moving back to some more winter related issues, I've had plenty of these stems come across my desk. If you own one of the Mophead type hydrangeas, your Mophead, if it's been exposed to any wind or weather, probably looks like this with lots of dead stems. My guess is people who have these old varieties, I call them old-fashioned hydrangeas, will not see many blooms this year. Again, the winter and the spring made it difficult for these, and why I added the spring is we had some late frosts. We fooled these plants. There was some warm weather, they started to leaf out, and you can see vestiges of brown leaves. That's from this spring. They started to unfold, and then we got a cold snap which killed this new growth. So a lot of the new growths and the buds that were hidden for the blooms were singed back or killed back just because of that strange weather that we had. So you're going to get plenty of green growth. These things will recover from the base. You'll see these new stems come up, but my bottom dollar bet is not many of them will have blossoms. If you want something different in hydrangeas, we have been promoting for years, and I'll call this the plant of the week. This is a Oakleaf Hydrangea, and you can see that it's well named. The leaves kind of have that oak leaf-like pattern with these lobes and sinuses that give it that distinctive shape. These are not as refined a plant in the sense that they tend to be larger and a little more sprawling and open grown, but they do have these distinctive sets of flowers with these panicles of flowers that come out, and will bloom up through, oh gosh, July some of the times. These are already getting an early start. You're going to look at a bush, rather than being 3 to 4 foot tall like these Mophead Hydrangeas, these can get 5, 6, I've even seen them 7 and 8 foot tall. I like them because they can take a fair amount of shade and bloom. They're very reliable when it comes to winter weather, but they do look a little unkept in the winter because they don't have as much branch structure, so they're kind of gawky looking. Before we end it, I'm going to talk about a freak of nature. I was taking a walk around the community pond recently, and I saw a clump of tree of heaven. Tree of heaven's a major weed tree in our area. It's just growing all over. It tends to take over kind of waste places or unattended spots. I've seen it growing out of the second floor siding on a building in Baltimore. This was unusual because it actually has a very flattened fan-shaped stem. It's almost ornamental. This is known as a condition called fasciation, where a lot of the stems will either flatten out or fuse together. There's an alphabet soup of causes that are listed. I don't think anybody knows 100% for sure why it happens, but it does happen. I think many times it's related to herbicide and herbicide reaction, but viruses are known to cause this. I don't know, alien visitors, who knows? There's probably a lot of people who have guessed at this, but this is just a unique thing that happens in the landscape. Some of the times you'll only see one branch that will have it, or one sprout that will come up. Some of the times with these viral diseases, it's a good indicator that the plant is on the way out. Viruses are very hard to resolve within a plant. Like us or follow us on social media. That's it for the Hortman. Thank you for joining me outside. It's nice and sunny.